In a shop, a girl dressed up in elegant clothes while her mother looked on with pride. As expected, the expensive outfit transformed her, light and graceful, almost like an angel. The children around her gathered, admiring her and saying she looked cool, like a real adult. Meanwhile, the girl was lost in thought. If she worked 52 weeks a year, 5 days a week, that would be 260 days. If she wore the outfit every 3 days, that would be about 87 times. Stretching that over 3 years, she realized how much it would cost per wear. Trying it on, she concluded she would have to wear only those clothes for 3 months straight to justify it. Her mother, calling her Minkyung, asked what she was thinking. She believed Minkyung was smart enough to succeed anywhere, but she still felt uneasy. Work life, she explained, was very different from school. Sometimes things happened without reason. No matter what, Minkyung had to remember 3 things. First, always obey your superior without complaint. Second, say what others want to hear, not what you want to say. Third, always smile when making eye contact. 10 years later, Minkyung had followed her mother's advice faithfully. She spoke carefully, controlled her expressions, and with an almost superhuman work ethic, achieved top scores in entrance exams, training evaluations, and competitions. She became the most desirable coworker, won the company's sports competition, took first place in the Golden Belt quiz, and earned the highest customer satisfaction scores. Excelling at everything, she quickly rose on the fast track to promotion, until yesterday. Standing in shock after hearing the word secretary, Minkyung listened as the CEO explained that an official announcement would be made soon. She would be appointed secretary and assistant to T in the trading team. Already working as an assistant, she realized she was being asked to take on an additional role. Thinking back on everything she had endured, she questioned the meaning of this sudden decision. Had she worked like a loyal dog for 10 years only to be demoted? Struggling to control her anger, she asked if she had made any mistakes and pleaded to be told so she could fix them. The CEO assured her there had been none. On the contrary, she had been too good. He explained that even manager Kang had acknowledged how unreasonable the request was. He didn't want to lose someone as capable as her, but after reviewing everything, it seemed she was the only one who could handle the matter involving T. Soon, she would receive an unusual proposal concerning him, connected to Songbikja, an estate surrounded by pine and nut trees, where sunlight filtered through to create a solemn atmosphere. It was a symbolic place in Korea's business world. Mentioning Songbikja, located within the estate of TK Group's leader, Chairman Tian, made it clear. This decision came from the very top. Minkyung understood. This was an all-or-nothing moment, either the greatest opportunity or the biggest crisis of her life. The scene shifted to the airport, where T arrived in casual clothes. As he stepped out, assistant manager Kim Chun greeted him and asked about his flight. T replied with a slight pout that it was fine. Kim Chun thanked him for his hard work on the business trip, but T quietly scoffed. The trip had been nothing more than an excuse. For the first time in years, he had let go of a long-held grudge. For 34 years, he had devoted his life to TK Group, all to become the owner of Songbikja. But after falling victim to a scheme by T-jun, he lost the company's core assets to him. Now, he couldn't help but wonder what he had been living for all this time. With everything turned upside down, he decided to simply enjoy himself. He had already left, leaving only a note behind, much to T-jun's irritation, as he couldn't understand how the company continued to run so smoothly without him. As T got into the car, he instructed Kim Chun to take him to his apartment in Cheongdam-dong. However, Kim Chun informed him that there was a message directing him to go straight to the Strategic Planning Division upon his return. Surprised, T asked if it was from T-jun. He tried to brush it off, saying he was tired and should go to the hospital instead. Just then, his phone rang. Annoyed, he checked the caller ID, T-jun. He immediately hung up, deciding he needed a break, but the phone kept ringing. Frustrated, he snapped, asking who it was and why they kept calling. Kim Chun clarified that it was Assistant Manager Kang from the electronics department. T froze for a moment, recognizing the name. assistant manager Kang Minkyung. He remembered she had joined the company around the same time as him. Kim Chun answered the call first and said she should speak directly with the director before handing the phone over. Feeling uneasy, T asked what was going on. Something about it made him nervous. He picked up, "How can I help?" Minkyung greeted him politely and informed him that starting today, she would be his personal secretary and business assistant. T frowned. Why would a high-ranking assistant manager like her become a secretary? Was this T-Jun's doing? Minkyung calmly suggested he discuss the details with managing director T-Jun. Grinding his teeth, T wondered if T-Jun had lost his mind. Frustrated, he snapped that he didn't need a secretary and told her to pass along that he would be resting. He hung up, assuming that was the end of it. It was. Minkyung turned to T-Jun and informed him that T had hung up. T-Jun simply smirked and told her to proceed as planned. At his apartment, T, half-dressed, let out a sigh of relief, thinking he could finally relax. Then his phone rang again. Annoyed, he picked it up, assuming it was Kim Chun. Kim Chun hesitantly asked if he could come in for a moment. Realizing Kim Chun was at the door, T frowned. "Manager Kang wants to come in." He groaned. "Minkyung, how does she even know where I live?" The phone shifted, and Minkyung formally introduced herself again. Frustrated, T demanded to know how she had gotten his address. Why would someone as busy as deputy director Kang come all the way to his home? Calmly, she replied that she was Kang Minkyung and that, starting today, she would be assisting executive director T as his secretary. Caught off guard, T asked if she was serious. "These orders come from Songbikja," she said. Then, without hesitation, she added, "My apologies, but we are short on time. I will come in now." Panic flashed across T's face. He scrambled to stop her, stumbling as he rushed to the door. "Wait just a second." But it was too late. The door opened. Minkyung stepped inside and greeted him formally, then froze. Standing before her was T, half naked. For a brief moment, she stood completely still, stunned. Then she quickly composed herself, turned, and shut the door. Behind her, T shouted in outrage. A short while later, fully dressed, T stepped out. Minkyung glanced at the time. 15 minutes remaining. Are you ready? I'm not ready at all, he shot back. I haven't even showered, I'm hungry, and I don't have anything to wear. Please don't worry, she replied calmly, calling out to Kim Chun. Kim Chun stepped forward with a suit already prepared. Minkyung explained that his clothes had been dry-cleaned in advance, and that breakfast had also been arranged. I don't eat sandwiches, T snapped. Based on your preferences, she replied. We prepared a ham and cheese sandwich without vegetables, along with an egg sandwich. She continued, explaining that they would review the schedule while moving. Wait a second, T interrupted sharply. Just because you're my secretary doesn't mean you can track me down to my house like this. He gestured around. This is my private space. I live freely here, however I want. Can you even handle that? After a brief pause, Minkyung began. If you feel uncomfortable because I'm a woman. Stop. T suddenly burst into laughter. Are you serious? You think I'm uncomfortable because of that? Unfazed, she nodded slightly. I'm relieved to hear that, sir. Glancing at the time, she added, 10 minutes until departure. There won't be time for a shower. She called for Kim Chun again. As expected, we prepared in advance. She put on gloves, while Kim Chun brought over a bucket and shampoo. Approaching T, she said calmly, You don't need to do anything. Now genuinely alarmed, T shouted, What do you think you're doing? Put that away. Minkyung paused, then stepped back without protest. T stared at her for a moment, struck by her unwavering composure. Letting out a long sigh, he ran a hand through his hair. Fine, give me 5 minutes. He went inside to wash up. As he did, he couldn't help but think about her. Loose hair, dull glasses, a plain two-piece suit. The exact same style for 10 years. Nothing had changed since the day they first met. And yet, she still managed to get on his nerves. A memory surfaced. The announcement of TK Group's 53rd training class. The top trainee had been Kang Minkyung, second place, T. T had spent his entire life preparing to inherit TK Group. Since childhood, he had been called a prodigy, always standing at the top through relentless effort. He had never ranked second. Until her. When the results were announced, the room had erupted in applause. T, barely containing his anger, had fixed his gaze sharply on Minkyung. Back in the present, he finished drying his hair. 5 minutes left, he said. That is correct, Minkyung replied. Looking at her, he frowned. Of all people, why did it have to be her? As he got dressed, he said flatly, I don't like having a close personal secretary. Minkyung stood straight. I will do my best to accommodate you. That's not it, he replied. You're just good at pretending not to understand. He continued, I've worked with people I dislike before, but this won't work. Looking directly at her, he said, Deputy Director Kang Minkyung, I don't like you. For a moment, Minkyung recalled their very first day at the training center. From the moment they were placed in the same group, T had disliked her. Quit while you're ahead, he added. She paused briefly, then spoke calmly. Executive Director, we are already 7 minutes behind schedule. We need to depart now. T blinked, momentarily speechless. Maintaining her composure, she added, Chairman Tian is waiting for you. T let out a quiet sigh of resignation. Accepting the situation, he finished getting dressed and said they should leave. As they walked down the hallway, Minkyung recalled his earlier words, that he didn't like her. But the truth was, she had never liked him either. Ever since the day they first met 10 years ago, the so-called prince of TK Group had always seemed like nothing more than a spoiled brat to her. Still, she swallowed those thoughts. The scene shifted to the car. As they got in, Minkyung stole a glance at T, then quickly looked away, suppressing her thoughts once again. No matter what she thought of him, she couldn't deny one thing. At least in terms of appearance, T was exactly her type. A memory surfaced. A week earlier, Chairman Tian of TK Group had asked if she was the assistant manager Kang Minkyung he had heard about. She confirmed that she was. He said he had heard many things about her from Director T-jun, that she was an excellent employee, and encouraged her to do her best as Executive Director T's assistant. Minkyung humbly replied that she still had much to improve. The chairman then mentioned her siblings, nodding that they were promising young athletes in winter sports. If they took after her, he said, they must be exceptionally talented. Since TK Group supported gifted athletes, he implied that this could work in her favor. Recalling T-jun's words about an interesting offer, Minkyung realized this was what he had meant. After leaving the mansion that day, she felt drained. The chairman's gaze had been intense, like a tiger watching its prey. Even his encouragement carried a sharp edge. Still, she reassured herself. She had done well so far. And if this opportunity meant her siblings could focus fully on their training without worrying about money, then it was worth it. Just then, she received a call from her younger brother, Min Hwan. She answered, and her brothers excitedly cheered on the other end. They told her they were celebrating a sportsmanship event and had thrown a big party. Minkyung smiled and told them to enjoy themselves. As she spoke, tears quietly slipped down her face. As long as they were happy, that was enough for her. Back in the present, sitting in the car, she reflected on the offer. Understanding its weight, she pushed aside her hesitation and focused on her responsibilities for her family's sake. With quiet determination, she began her first day as T's secretary. At the mansion, T sat beside his grandfather, gently massaging his shoulders. He pointed to the cake on the table, mentioning that it reminded him of one he had bought in Austria when he was younger. Then he asked about his grandfather's health. Nothing has changed, the chairman replied. Minkyung observed the interaction carefully. Chairman Tian seemed completely different from the last time she had seen him. It was hard to believe that this gentle, almost warm figure was the same imposing man from before. T suggested they go on a trip together sometime, but the chairman firmly declined, saying he preferred staying at home. It was clear T was the only person who could make him appear this gentle. Then the chairman turned his attention to Minkyung. "Are you performing your duties properly?" Maintaining her composure, she answered confidently that although it was her first day, she was adjusting quickly. Internally, however, she couldn't shake the feeling that his gaze was piercing straight through her. He pointed out that she had arrived slightly late. "I will correct that," she replied. Her hands trembled slightly. From the side, T noticed. This wasn't like her at all. The always composed Minkyung now seemed visibly shaken. The chairman expressed his high expectations. "I am honored," she replied. "I hope you do not disappoint me. I will do my best to meet your expectations." T watched her closely and realized she was genuinely afraid. The chairman then turned to T and instructed him to visit Songbikja, make an appearance, and deliver a product briefing. Looking back at Minkyung, he asked if she had prepared the necessary documents. "Yes, I have," she answered. He emphasized that T was the core of TK Group and that only the best personnel should assist him. T agreed lightly. There's no one quite like Assistant Manager Kang. Then, glancing at his grandfather, he added, "I also think highly of her." Minkyung felt a sudden sense of unease. She had no idea what he was about to say next. Then T continued, almost casually, "She can enter and leave my house freely, like a personal attendant." Minkyung's heart dropped. "Please stop talking." Panicking internally, she clutched his sleeve, her expression tense, silently begging him to stop. If this went any further, she might get fired on her very first day. T noticed her reaction and tried to correct himself, but Minkyung, eyes beginning to well with tears, shook her head slightly, urging him not to continue. The chairman, noticing the exchange, told T to go on. T paused, then smiled. "Actually," he said smoothly, "I'm simply grateful to have Assistant Manager Kang as my secretary." That night, Minkyung returned home completely exhausted. It felt less like physical fatigue and more like her mind had been stretched to its limit. Unlocking the door, she thought about taking a shower and going straight to bed. But the moment she stepped inside, her two younger brothers rushed her, jumping on her and complaining about how late she was. They had been waiting for her, preparing a surprise celebration. Her roommate, Leisha, greeted her warmly, saying she must have had a long day. Then she asked why Minkyung was so late and whether she had eaten. Still confused, Minkyung looked around. "What's going on?" Zha smiled and began to explain that she had prepared a surprise party after hearing the good news from the twins. Minkyung laughed, a little overwhelmed, and Zha told her to freshen up while she finished cooking. Watching the lively, chaotic scene created by her brothers and Zha, Minkyung felt both stressed and deeply touched. People often said it took a whole community to raise children, and she finally understood what that meant. After taking a shower, she felt refreshed. Zha peeked in and asked if she was done, adding that someone would be arriving soon and they should all eat together. Minkyung asked if it was Hyun-woo, and just then, the doorbell rang. Zha smiled. That must be him. She went to greet him, asking when he had returned to Korea. He replied that traffic had been heavy on the way. Minkyung stepped into the hallway as the guest entered. "It's been a while," he said warmly. "Why didn't you tell me you were back?" she asked. Hyun-woo laughed. "You haven't changed at all." Embarrassed, Minkyung teased, "Are you just showing off that t-shirt?" He grinned, pointing out that it featured her favorite cartoon character. Their families had grown up in the same neighborhood, so they had naturally become close. Since he had graduated earlier and often looked after her, Hyun-woo had become like a reliable older brother, especially when she entered university at a young age. As they sat down with drinks, Zha brought up how Minkyung had never really drunk alcohol before, always claiming she was missing out on life's pleasures. Minkyung shrugged. "It's not a big deal if I don't drink, but today, maybe just one glass." Zhe cheered, congratulating the twins on their TK sponsorship and Hyun Woo on being scouted. One of the twins asked if being recruited by M and P law firm was really that impressive, and whether he was staying in Korea now. Hyun Woo nodded. He had been assigned to handle a trading-related case and would be staying. He then asked Minkyung which team she had joined. I started in the trading team today, she replied. Zhou immediately cut in, exposing her. You mean as a secretary? Hyun Woo looked surprised. You're working as a secretary. Zhe smirked, clearly enjoying herself. So, what's it like working so closely with T? Minkyung gave a dry look. Do I really need to say it? Why do you look so miserable? Zhe teased. He's the only grandson of TK Group's chairman, one of the biggest chaebol heirs in the country. He's been famous since he was a kid, handsome, elegant, basically an idol. She continued, describing how T had grown up under constant media attention, with paparazzi following him everywhere. Maybe that was why, once he became an adult, he disappeared from the public eye. Now, only rumors about his looks circulated. Zhe nudged Minkyung. Don't tell me you feel nothing working next to someone like that. People would trade photo cards of him, you know. Being his personal assistant is basically a fast track to promotion. I'd be lucky just not to get fired, Minkyung replied flatly. Everyone paused. What do you mean? Zhe asked. Minkyung hesitated before admitting. The executive director doesn't seem to like me. They all reacted in surprise. Why? Hyun-woo asked. We joined around the same time, she explained. But we've never really spoken. I think he's disliked me since the training center. After a pause, she added honestly, to be fair, I don't like him either, but now we're stuck working together. Hyun-woo sighed. That must be stressful, being around someone you don't get along with all day. Was today hard? It was, she admitted, but I was compensated for it. As he stood behind her and gently massaged her shoulders, he said, Money is important, but so is your health. You've always worked too hard. Minkyung smiled faintly. I'll be fine. You're always so kind to me. I wish my boss was even half as nice. At that moment, her phone buzzed. Message after message from T. Organize the schedule. Send it over. Prepare materials for the client meeting. Be at the office by 7:00. Minkyung froze. He could at least act like half a decent human being. The next morning. Good morning, sir, she greeted. T glanced at his watch. You're 30 minutes late. Annoyed, she replied. I arrived on time. The entrance password was changed. Why would it need to be changed? He asked. I adjusted for the delay so it wouldn't affect the workflow, she said calmly, though internally she was fuming. You changed it yourself. T simply sighed and told her to proceed with her work as he walked off. When will you be ready for today's briefing? She asked. I just woke up, he replied lazily. I expected that, she said, holding out a cup. So I brought you coffee. I only drink Kenyan coffee, he said. Blended a specific way, rich and heavy, pour that down the drain. Her eye twitched slightly. Understood. As she tried to continue discussing the schedule, he waved her off. The schedule's canceled. I'm resting. Her hands trembled with anger. Director Taejun is waiting, she said firmly. There was a meeting, he replied casually. Then I shouldn't have woken up so early. Cancel it. Minkyung clenched her jaw. It's only my second day. He looked at her. Do you have something to say? Holding back everything, she replied. I'd like to make a request. For the first time in 10 years, her patience was being tested. Switching to business, she began her report. TK Electronics, office tower reconstruction will take time, but TK Trading's internal restructuring has progressed. The next report will cover trade construction, Superior Resorts, and the TK Fashion Division. T listened, then commented, You saved fashion for last. Is that the worst? He leaned back. TK Fashion, the foundation of the group, is now its biggest failure. So why do they keep assigning me businesses like that? He scoffed. How am I supposed to fix something that's already falling apart? T scoffed, mentioning the rumors that the division might be sold. Despite all his hard work, T-Jun had taken the profitable parts and dumped the struggling ones on him. Maybe I should just quit, he muttered. Minkyung watched him quietly, thinking that he truly had no intention of working. Seeing his laid-back attitude, she wondered how she was supposed to manage this situation. What had happened to the driven T from the training center? Back then, he had been just as sharp, though always cold toward her. Looking at him now, she couldn't help but think his nickname, the Crown Prince, suited him perfectly. Assistant Manager Kang. His voice snapped her out of her thoughts. What were you thinking just now? He asked. She hesitated, trying to compose herself. Control your expression, she reminded herself. There's no need to deny it, T said. What's someone like you, who's always performed so well, going to do now that you're on my team? There's no issue, she replied calmly. It's an honor to work under you, Executive Director. T stood and stepped closer. Your lips are dry, and you're still lying. Then he turned and walked away. Stop doing that. Left alone, Minkyung paused, feeling a wave of embarrassment. Am I going to be okay? A memory surfaced. 10 years ago, at the welcoming ceremony for TK Group's 53rd batch of recruits, the hall had been filled with excitement. Everyone knew the spotlight would fall on the top-ranked trainee, Kang Minkyung. The chairman had specifically instructed T to observe her closely and determine whether she was truly a pillar of the company or simply someone clever on the surface. Those had been his exact words. At the event, T had glanced at her briefly, but found himself more distracted by the whispers surrounding him. That's the chairman's grandson. A third-generation chaebol, he has everything. And he's good-looking too. T smiled faintly, aware of the attention. He had long grown used to it, especially from people who couldn't even meet his eyes. He didn't enjoy it. If anything, it irritated him. Taking a sip of his drink, he savored the brief moment of quiet, knowing how exhausting it was to maintain his image all day. Then, footsteps approached. Minkyung. She looked straight at him. Unlike everyone else, she didn't avoid his gaze. For some reason, that made him uneasy. Back in the present, T opened his eyes, surprised by the vividness of the memory. Executive Director. Minkyung's voice came from outside. Before he could respond, she entered. I brought documents that require your approval. He frowned. Why are you coming in before I answer? But as he looked at her, he paused. For a split second, she resembled the version of her from his memory. You were asleep, she said calmly. I couldn't wait any longer. She placed the documents on the table. This is the report for the resort project. T dismissed it at first. Why make such a big deal over something simple? But as he skimmed through it, he paused. It was exceptionally well organized. Clear, concise, easy to follow. He tossed it aside casually. Don't overwork yourself. It won't change anything. No one will acknowledge it, and the company won't collapse without you. Then he looked at her. Do you disagree? No, she said firmly. I don't. She continued. Executive Director T is essential to the trading division. No one in the past 10 years has failed to recognize your dedication to TK Group. She bowed her head slightly. I'm grateful to work under someone so capable. T turned away. You can go. I'll review it later. Yes, sir, she replied. Please let me know if any revisions are needed. With that, she left. Elsewhere, T-Jun smiled as he saw T. It's been a while since I've seen you actually working, he remarked. Didn't you say you wouldn't work? He added. T shrugged. That wasn't me, it was Minkyung. T-Jun raised a brow. I knew assigning her as your secretary was the right decision. Unimpressed, T asked, what excuse did you use to transfer her? Did you find some kind of weakness? You should already know, T-Jun replied with a smirk. He pointed out that T had been away, avoiding work overseas, so it only made sense to assign someone capable to fill the gap. T thought for a moment. Minkyung's background came to mind. Her parents ran a modest restaurant, and her twin brothers were competitive athletes. Financial pressure must have been constant. If the order had come from Songbikja, she probably hadn't been in a position to refuse. His grip tightened slightly around his glass. T-jun noticed. She's doing well in her role. There's nothing wrong with her performance. Then he asked, "Are you concerned about her?" T scoffed. Of course not. But the memory of her grabbing his arm, her eyes filled with urgency, lingered in his mind. It felt unfamiliar. Unsettling. He brushed it off. It's nothing. Still, the feeling didn't completely fade. On a warm afternoon, T was finally relaxing with a cup of coffee when footsteps. Vast. Before he could react, Minkyung burst in. "Executive Director, are you resting? We need to begin the afternoon briefing." "Wait," he started, startled. But she was already going through the schedule. Later, sitting in the car, T sighed to Kim Chun. "My life has turned into a thriller. Every time I hear footsteps, my heart starts racing." Kim Chun replied calmly. "Assistant Manager Kang is very passionate." "The car is the only place I can relax," T muttered. Just then, his phone rang. He glanced at it and froze. "Minkyung." "Don't answer it," he whispered urgently. But Kim Chun had already picked up. "This is Kim Chun speaking. How can I help you?" T gestured frantically, signaling him not to reveal his location. On the other end, Minkyung said coolly, "I can hear the executive director." She continued, "There are no scheduled tasks that require him to be outside right now." T tried to respond, "I have something to do." "Do you really believe there's anything I'm unaware of?" she replied. She reminded him of the workload waiting for him and firmly told him to return. "I'm busy," he muttered weakly. "That's fine," she said. "I'll wait." Click. Back at home later, Minkyung groaned in frustration. It was already past working hours, and she was exhausted. She tried to comfort her, acknowledging how hard she had been working. Just then, the doorbell rang. "Hyun-woo," she guessed, opening the door. He stepped in, and Minkyung looked surprised. "You came straight after work." "I couldn't wait," he said with a smile. She teased that he must have come for the food Minkyung's mother had sent. He admitted it with a laugh. Delighted, Minkyung offered to prepare a large portion, but he quickly stopped her. "Just a little is fine." "There's plenty," she insisted. "Please enjoy it." As they settled in, she commented on how busy both of them seemed lately. Hyun-woo nodded and gently reminded Minkyung not to overwork herself. Suddenly remembering something, Hyun-woo turned to Je. "Don't you have a blind date tomorrow?" Je froze. "How do you know about that?" He shrugged casually. "The guy is the son of the director at J Hospital, the one we visited. He was actually my classmate in elementary school." Je's eyes widened in shock. "He messaged me 3 days ago," Hyun-woo continued. "He said he reached out to you, but your replies were a bit blunt. He thought he might have done something wrong." "I wasn't being cold," Je protested. "What exactly did he say?" "He just asked about your preferences," Hyun-woo explained. "So I told him you like the French restaurant at M Hotel." "Is that all?" she asked cautiously. "Pretty much," he said. "I also mentioned you're the cute and stylish type." "Cute and stylish," Minkyung muttered under her breath, incredulous. Flustered, Je shot back, "I am cute." Then, embarrassed, she pushed Hyun-woo toward the door. "Go already, you'll be late." Laughing, he waved as he left. "Tell your mother thanks for the food." After the door closed, Minkyung turned to Je, visibly distressed. "What am I supposed to do?" "Just stay calm," Je said, trying to reassure her. 3 days earlier, Je had begged Minkyung to go on the blind date in her place. "It's at the M Hotel French restaurant," she insisted. "It's expensive and the atmosphere is amazing." Minkyung frowned. Since when is French food your favorite? Just this once, Je pleaded. Then, with an exaggeratedly cute expression, she reminded Minkyung of the concert tickets she had managed to get for her favorite group, their last full group concert before some members enlisted in the military. If I miss it, I might never see them all together again. Desperate, Je clung to her dramatically and made a bold promise. If you help me this time, I won't ask you to do any housework for 6 months. I'll cook, clean, do everything. Minkyung sighed. You don't have to go that far. But Je refused to back down. In the end, Minkyung relented. Fine, just 1 hour. And that was how it started. Meanwhile, Je, an 8-year veteran fashion magazine editor who believed clothing was one of humanity's greatest inventions, took charge. Standing before Minkyung, who knew almost nothing about fashion, she declared her mission: transform her completely. How am I supposed to pretend to be you? Minkyung asked. Don't worry, Je said confidently. Opening her wardrobe, she smiled. As a professional, I'll stake my reputation on this. The day of the dinner arrived. Je buzzed with excitement. Are you ready? No, Minkyung answered immediately. I meant mentally, Je clarified. Then yes. Good, Je cheered, grabbing her. Let's get changed. As she worked, Je suddenly started speaking as if she were filming. Hello, everyone. Today we have a special guest. Please welcome her. What are you doing? Minkyung asked, confused. Pretending to be a makeup vlogger, Je replied casually. It's fun. She hesitated for a moment. Shall we begin? Pulling out products, she introduced them one by one. Emulsion for sensitive skin, illuminator, a radiant finishing product, and a soothing toner. First, skincare. She paused to admire Minkyung's complexion. Your skin is actually amazing. What are you talking about? Minkyung asked. I'm in character, Je replied. After a long preparation, the makeup was finally complete. Minkyung stared at herself in the mirror, genuinely surprised by the transformation. But they weren't done yet. Now the outfit. Later, at the hotel, T commented that it had been a while since he'd had a personal engagement. Kim Chun mentioned that the elementary school alumni gathering was a good opportunity to reconnect after so long. I hope you enjoy it, he said. I will, T replied. Soon after, he received a message directing him to head to the lodge bar, and he made his way there. Meanwhile, Minkyung arrived at the hotel, feeling slightly uneasy. She had never been to a place like this before and worried she might be late. Inside, she met her date, Jongwoo, the hospital director's son. I thought you'd be petite, he said, surprised. Since I heard you were the cute type, but you're tall and very beautiful. You're flattering me, she replied politely. As they ate, he asked if she liked the food. Yes, she answered, though internally she felt so uncomfortable she thought she might lose her appetite entirely. Just 10 more minutes, she reminded herself, recalling Je's promise that it would only last an hour. Then Jongwoo spoke again. Shall we go to the rooftop lodge bar? It's famous for its signature night cocktail. The view is amazing. Minkyung gave a polite smile. I'm sorry, she said. I have work tomorrow.